Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. We all know how hard it is to keep up with everything happening in tech, so we're here to help you cut through the noise.
That's right.
Today, we're going deep on something crucial you might not always think about, but that's super important. Global field engineering,
Yeah.
specifically in the semiconductor industry.
Mm.
We're going to be diving into the source, GFO operations, overcoming engineering challenges.
Okay.
To figure out what it really takes to deploy and then keep running these super advanced tools that make semiconductors all over the world. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
The demand for semiconductors is just exploding, right? I mean, everything needs them, from our smartphones to, well, even like cutting-edge electric vehicles.
Absolutely. And aerospace.
Mhm.
Like the really advanced aerospace systems, they all rely on semiconductors.
Exactly. So it's not just about having expertise in one place anymore.
Right.
It's a truly global industry, and that comes with a whole other set of challenges.
For sure.
And that's where a company like Orbit and Skyline comes in.
Yeah.
They've been supporting OEMs, the companies that build those incredible semiconductor manufacturing tools, for over 15 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
And their global field operations team,
Yeah.
they're the ones who are actually out there making sure those complex installations happen without a hitch
Okay. Yeah.
anywhere in the world. Imagine like setting up an EUV lithography machine, which is insanely precise, in a factory that's thousands of miles away from where it was built.
That sounds so complicated.
Right, and it's not just about getting it there.
No.
You need people who not only have that deep technical knowledge, but who can also operate in totally different cultures and under all sorts of different regulations.
That's a lot to handle.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're going to dig into today. We want to understand those specific hurdles, the ones that make global field engineering so tricky.
Got it.
And more importantly, we'll see how companies like Orbit and Skyline are finding innovative solutions to overcome them.
I'm ready.
All right, so let's start with something we hear about all the time in tech, and that's the struggle to find skilled engineers.
Yeah. The skills gap.
Exactly. The source we're looking at today really stresses how there's a worldwide shortage of engineers who have the right skills for semiconductor manufacturing.
Oh, yeah. That's a big problem. Especially, what's really in high demand are process engineers.
Yep.
Ones with experience in advanced node manufacturing.
And what does that mean exactly?
So advanced node manufacturing, it means working at like the atomic level, incredibly tiny details.
Wow.
It's not like you can just take an engineer from a different field and expect them to know how to do this.
Right.
It takes very specific training and experience, all within like the semiconductor world.
So how's Orbit and Skyline dealing with this shortage and the need to have engineers who can work effectively in so many different places around the world?
Well, they're doing a few things. They're looking for talented engineers everywhere, all over the world, which makes sense.
Makes sense.
But they're also putting a lot of effort into training people locally.
Oh, okay.
Like they have this thing called the Mohali Academy.
The Mohali Academy.
Yeah, and it's not just about the technical stuff.
Okay.
It's also about developing those soft skills,
Right, like communication.
Right, communication, how to work with people from different cultures, even like how to understand different approaches to problem solving.
Yeah, because you could have someone who's like a genius with the tech, but if they can't talk to their team or understand cultural differences, things could fall apart pretty quickly.
Exactly, and it doesn't stop there. They're not just relying on their own employees. They also work with experts, people who are really knowledgeable about specific regions or have special skills that are needed.
So kind of like a mix of in-house talent and bringing in specialists.
Right, exactly, like a hybrid approach.
Yeah.
And they're really big on continuous development.
Okay, so they want their engineers to keep learning and growing.
Yeah, because in this industry, things change so fast.
Yeah.
If you don't keep up with the latest technology, you're going to get left behind.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something else that must be a huge hurdle in global field engineering.
Okay.
And that's all the different regulations and safety standards you have to deal with in different countries.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one. Every country, it seems, has its own rules about the environment, safety, you name it.
It's not just one set of rules you need to follow.
No, it's like a patchwork, right?
Yeah, patchwork. And if you don't get it right,
Oh, it's bad news.
what kind of bad news are we talking about?
Well, your project could be delayed. You could face, like, massive fines.
Oh, wow.
They could even shut down your whole operation.
Seriously. Okay, so how does a company like Orbit and Skyline handle all of this? How do they make sure they're following the rules everywhere they work?
So they have a whole team. A global compliance function, that's what they call it.
Global compliance function.
Yeah, and their whole job is to stay up to date on all these rules and regulations all over the world.
Okay.
And they don't just sit around reading rule books all day.
Right.
They make sure the field engineers get regular training on compliance, specific training for the places they're going to be working in.
That makes sense. So they're not waiting for problems to happen. They're trying to prevent them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of audits and risk assessments too.
What does that mean?
So they're like actively looking for potential problems before they become big problems. They don't want to be caught off guard,
So it's all about being really proactive and prepared.
Exactly. And they don't just do this on their own. They also work with like legal experts and safety experts to make sure they're doing everything by the book.
That makes sense. So they're really serious about this. They're not cutting any corners.
Oh, definitely not. And then on top of all that, they have standardized safety training that everyone has to do no matter where they're working.
So safety is a top priority everywhere.
Absolutely.
All right, now let's think about the logistics of all this for a second.
Okay.
I mean, you've got engineers all over the world going to different projects.
Right.
Just getting them to the right place at the right time must be a nightmare.
It's a lot, that's for sure. It's not just about, booking flights and hotels.
What else is involved?
Visas, work permits, making sure everyone has a place to stay, understanding how things work in different countries.
Like cultural customs and stuff?
Yeah, all those little details,
Right, because if something goes wrong with any of that, the whole project could be delayed.
Exactly. And that costs money.
So how do companies like Orbit and Skyline manage all of that?
Well, they say they've streamlined their processes.
What does that mean? Streamlined?
So they've made everything more efficient, like how they handle travel arrangements, applying for visas, making sure people have somewhere to stay.
Oh, so they've got a system in place.
Yeah, I think they probably have dedicated people, or maybe they work with other companies, to take care of all those details.
Yeah.
The goal is to make it as easy as possible for the engineers,
So the engineers can focus on the technical stuff.
Exactly. And that keeps the projects on track and on budget.
Makes sense. Okay, now let's talk about communication.
Sure.
Because that's always important, right?
Oh, yeah. Huge.
But when you've got teams all over the world, working in different time zones, speaking different languages, coming from different cultures.
Oh, the potential for things to go wrong is, enormous.
Right. Even if everyone's trying their best, things can get lost in translation.
Oh, absolutely. And then you add in the time zone differences. It's just...
Yeah, a recipe for disaster.
Pretty much.
So how do companies like Orbit and Skyline handle that communication challenge?
So they're using tech tools like, Microsoft Teams and WhatsApp.
To help people stay in touch?
Yeah, so they can communicate in real time no matter where they are. But that's just part of it.
Okay. What else are they doing?
Well, they're really big on clear documentation and standardized workflows.
So everyone's working from the same information.
Exactly. And everyone's following the same process. That way, there's less room for confusion.
Makes sense. And I bet that cultural sensitivity training we talked about earlier is super important here too, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can teach engineers to understand different communication styles, different cultural norms, it can really help with teamwork and prevent misunderstandings.
Right, because it's about more than just speaking the same language.
Totally. It's about understanding each other and respecting each other's cultures.
Okay. Last but not least, let's talk about standardization and quality control.
All right.
I mean, how do you make sure that the quality of work is the same everywhere when you're dealing with different infrastructure, different resources, maybe even different suppliers in different parts of the world?
It's tough. I mean, you might have a great setup in one country, but in another country, the infrastructure might not be as good, or maybe the suppliers aren't as reliable. So it's really hard to guarantee that everything will be exactly the same no matter where you are.
Yeah, keeping that consistency must be a challenge.
It is.
So how do they do it? How do companies like Orbit and Skyline make sure that the quality is high no matter where they're working?
Well, they have these really specific, standardized installation protocols.
Okay.
So no matter where they're doing the installation, they follow these super detailed procedures.
Oh, so there's no room for improvisation or cutting corners?
Nope. And then they have this centralized knowledge base.
What's that?
It's like a giant library, but it's all online.
Okay.
And it's full of, best practices, troubleshooting guides, all sorts of technical information.
So anyone on the team can access it anytime, anywhere.
Exactly. It's like all their expertise all in one place.
Wow. So looking at all of this, all the challenges and the solutions, what would you say are the things that really make Orbit and Skyline stand out in this field?
Well, I think their experience is huge.
Yeah, over 15 years of doing this, that counts for something.
Right. And they have like more than 150 field engineers, and they really understand wafer fabrication.
That Mohali Academy we talked about, that seems like a big deal too.
Oh, yeah. They're really committed to training and developing their people.
And I remember they also talked about being cost-effective and flexible.
Right. They can adapt to different needs.
Yeah.
They don't just have a one-size-fits-all approach.
And I guess handling all that global travel and visas, they're pretty good at that too.
Oh, yeah. That's crucial for any company working internationally.
It sounds like they've thought of everything.
They really have. I mean, they're not just trying to fix one problem at a time.
Yeah.
They've created a whole system to deal with all the challenges of global field engineering.
It's pretty impressive. Well, this has been a really fascinating look at something that I think doesn't get enough attention.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, we all benefit from the work these engineers do, but we don't always think about what it takes to get it done,
So true.
especially in an industry as complex as semiconductor manufacturing. And it's clear that companies like Orbit and Skyline are leading the way with their proactive strategies and their commitment to excellence.
Absolutely. I mean, they're not just reacting to problems.
No.
They're anticipating them and coming up with solutions in advance.
Which is so important because the tech world is just getting more globalized all the time.
Right. I mean, think about it. Deploying and supporting technology all over the world isn't just a nice to have anymore.
No.
It's a must have. If you want to succeed, you have to be able to operate globally.
And that brings us to our final thought for you today. As technology becomes more and more globalized, affecting more industries, what other challenges are companies going to face? How are they going to ensure quality and expertise no matter where they're working? It's something to really think about.
It is. And if you're interested in learning more about this, you should definitely check out the source we used today, which is GFO Operations, Overcoming Engineering Challenges.
Great suggestion. There's so much more to explore in this area.
There is.
So thanks for joining us on the deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.